Hey guys, Shane McMurray from the Wedding Report. In this episode, I interview Michael, who is the owner of Wedditor, which is a wedding film editing company. He's located in Las Vegas, but his company is distributed throughout the world. So great interview. Enjoy. All right, so Michael, let's talk about your business. Tell me what you do, where you're located, your website address, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. So my name is Michael Franchetti, and I am the founder of Wedditor. We are a wedding film editing company. That means we edit wedding films for professional wedding filmmakers. We do not shoot weddings. We are just post-production. Officially, we're based in Las Vegas. That's where I am. But we are a remote team. Our core team is across the U.S. We have our project director outside of Baltimore. One of our account managers, for example, is in North Carolina. And then all of our editors are remote as well. We have editors based in the U.S., Canada, England, Bulgaria, the Philippines, and a few other countries that we work with.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about what goes into the work that you do.
So as I just mentioned, we are only a post-production wedding video editing company. So wedding filmmakers come to us either because they don't have time to edit or they don't want to edit or a variety of other reasons, but then we take those films and we become their editing partner. So it's definitely
I'm a couple, I'm getting married. I've hired a videographer to do my wedding. The videographer, he's like, or they are doing so much stuff, they don't have time to edit. They basically send it out to you guys to do the editing of the video.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it used to kind of be seen 5 years ago, outsourcing, right? There was a negative connotation around it, but it's really changed now. There's a lot of reputable companies out there. We're not the only one. And it really allows the filmmaker to spend more time focused on the couple, right? Because filmmakers don't realize at first, it's like, the sales, the marketing, the time that you have to spend with a couple, the consultations, you want to get to know them, right? You're going to be filming them. You're telling their story. You're telling their story of them committing their lives to each other. So you want to know who they are, right? Because you want to make sure that you make a film that's going to show their personalities and represent them. And so all this time goes into it. And it's just better that filmmakers are spending the time on that than spending, those late nights editing.
Mm-hmm. So, I know a lot of like freelance filmmakers that do, work on the side. They have another job during the daytime, right? And then, what is it that you think maybe you guys, how do you guys alleviate that from them? Because I can imagine as a filmmaker, right? Like I'm creating the film, I want to have more creative control around what I end up providing. So what is it that like you would give them or make them feel like, hey, I feel like you're going to tell my story for me, right? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. This is one of the hardest parts about wedding film editing. And I'll be honest, when I started the company about 3.5 years ago, I thought it would be more formulaic than it is. It is incredible how different wedding filmmakers are. I come from a film background, but I don't come from a wedding film background.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the most difficult things is being able to both make sure that the story we're telling of the film we're editing fits both the filmmaker's brand and at the same time it's telling the story of the couple. And so we have a whole internal process of what we do to get to know the filmmaker. But this is why I mentioned that it's a collaboration. If a filmmaker's idea is, and this is important for couples to know actually also, but if the filmmaker's idea is like, hey, I'm going to upload the footage or send a hard drive to this editing company, kick back, pop a beer, watch the game, and 2 weeks later, I'm going to get my film back and it's going to be perfect. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It is a partnership. It is a creative collaboration, and it takes us time to get to know what a filmmaker wants. We're not mind readers, right? So we need a number of projects. After a number of projects, right? You guys do a lot of statistics. So we have our own internal statistics and we look at a lot of trends and patterns in filmmakers' works, right? We're trying to identify them. Now, filmmakers will say, well, I don't have any trends or patterns, right? I'm an artist. It's like, no, they're there. Trust me, they're there. You may not see them, but they're there.
Yeah, it's totally there. So how much time? What does that collaboration part look like with the filmmaker?
Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, we have them fill out and we'll just answer a ton of questions. We've broken down every step of the process. We take that information and that gets put into a client profile, which is a living document. Mm-hmm. And then we work with project managers. So for us, the editor does not actually communicate with the filmmaker. We have those project managers. All of our project managers were former wedding film editors or wedding filmmakers. And then their job is really to know the client better than anyone. So they watch the films, they analyze them, we have conversations. There's some great platforms out there right now called like frame.io. It's a video collaboration platform where you can watch the video. You click on the video, a text box pops up. You can leave a note. You can hashtag the note. So we can just look at sound notes. We could just look at color notes, story notes. You can annotate the film. You can like draw circles, like, the blacks are too dark here. So it gives you it gives the filmmaker a sense that they still have a lot of control over the process. And it really helps us also get to the point where, and we will eventually get there, where V1 usually is the final version.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like, even though you meet someone fresh, right, it takes a while to build a relationship with them, understand how they feel about certain things. And then you get it down, and then, you're 5, 6, 10 films in, and you're like, yeah, we know how this guy wants it, or this person wants it, and it makes it much easier. But it takes a while. True.
It does that. And I tell filmmakers that all the time. I say, look, yeah, you're going to see benefits immediately, right? It's like, hey, I didn't spend 20 to 40 hours editing this film, and here it is. But the real benefits are going to be 6 months down the line, or even a year down the line. Like, we've had clients that, like, let's say it's January 2020, and at this time last year, we had just started the partnership, and they still had 20 films from 2019 they have edited. This year at this time, they're all caught up. And they're looking forward to 2020 as opposed to back at 2019.
Yeah. Right. The backlog is probably the worst thing.
Definitely. That's they just drown in it.
Yeah, for sure. So what if I'm a filmmaker, I'm looking to do business with you? What am I looking at? Like, what's the process to get started? What's my cost to get started? That sort of thing.
So we have a pretty extensive intake form on our website, which is wedditor.com. That's Wedditor with 2 Ds, Wedditor. So there's an intake form there. You fill that out. We'll get in touch with you. And then we just kind of go from there. We have to be careful about how many clients we take on, because it's always a balance of ensuring we have the right number of editors and the right number of projects. You don't want too few or too many of either, because your business will collapse. So we have steadily grown. Intentionally, we started very slowly, and only last September did we take on a very large sponsorship. So we've had a huge influx in inquiries over the past couple months. And so very slowly, we just take on new clients. But yeah, I always advise people, reach out anyway. If you fill out our intake form, everybody immediately gets linked to my calendar. They can schedule a 30-minute call with me just to discuss it, because also a lot of filmmakers, when they do reach out, they're not necessarily ready to go. Or ready to begin the partnership. A lot of times costs can be prohibitive at first, especially at the end of a season where you're backlogged, you didn't anticipate it, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, I didn't anticipate it, so I didn't save the money to pay somebody to edit my films.
Right.
So I tell people, right, like the hardest time to get started is always in the beginning, and you have to view it as an investment, not an expense. Personally, I think if you just try to go online and find a freelance editor, to me, that's an expense. Because that freelance editor it's a gig for hire. They're looking for the next thing. I was a freelance videographer for a number of years. You pay me better, you go to the top of the queue. Wedding films, don't pay as high as corporate. So those freelance editors, a lot of times, to me, that's just an expense. Whereas if you partner with a company, that company most likely is still going to be there. They're looking for a long-term partnership. So that to me is an investment. Yeah. But prices vary quite a bit.
Well, yeah, it's all custom, right? I mean, it depends on what you need, but
it's not right. Like a wedding filmmaker typically will offer the silver package, the gold package, the platinum package, right? And then the brides or the couples will choose 1, 2, or 3. For us, we have to produce whatever the client wants, whatever the filmmaker wants. So for us, it's a combination of the time it takes to do something versus the complexity it takes to do it. Because in order to edit something complex, you need experience. You have experience, price goes up, right? That's why a highlight film that's 3 to 5 minutes takes as long to edit as a full film, because that full film is so simple, but because that full film is 90 minutes, it's still time consuming. But the complexity of the highlight film means the budget is up. So, you're looking...
You got to watch that 90-minute film. It's not like, you just like, that was
totally.
Good. You cut it, right? You got to watch it and then think about it and process it and tag it. And
Totally. But so highlight films, it just depends where you're at in the market. Are you a very upmarket filmmaker that's going to, be incredibly detail oriented? You're going to leave 100 comments on that first film. You can be looking at over $1,000 for a film. Whereas very simple, we have high volume clients. So our largest client by volume shoots about 175 weddings a year. Okay, so for them, there's a formula.
Yeah.
They still produce great quality. I love them. They're an amazing, amazing company. But there's a little bit more formula. So not only does the price come down because of bulk, but it also comes down just because there is that formula. And we can learn it, and then we can just kind of, that rinse, wash,
because like initially you got to understand who I am, right? Figure me out. And so yeah, that might be 40 hours of work initially, but once you figure it out and you go, look, I don't need 40 hours. You don't need 40 hours of my time anymore. You only need 10 hours of my time because I know exactly what you want when you want it. And then boom, we can bring your price down and we're good, right?
Yep.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. So what advice would you have for people that are getting married in the video space?
So I think that absolutely couples who are listening right now, I think that you absolutely need a wedding film. You need both. A lot of times it gets lumped with photography, and you need both of them. They complement each other, right? Photography is going to capture the moments, whereas a wedding film is going to tell a love story. It's telling the story of two people committing their lives to each other. Film has the ability to move in space and time. We can follow the bride as she walks down the aisle, right? We can make sure that the camera's on the groom the entire time she's walking down the aisle so that we capture those 2 or 3 seconds where he's starting to tear up, right? Film can also use sound. We can capture all of the speeches so that you have those for the rest of your life. You've got your parents' speeches. You've got, the maid of honor speech, the best man speech. We can capture the sound if you do a first look, which is becoming more and more popular, I think, a lot because of film, because it's such an emotional moment where, the bride's coming up behind the groom and she touches his shoulder and he turns around. And that's usually the time you're going to actually get the most emotion from the groom. And if it's mic'd properly, we can get the groom. We can get him starting to choke up or tear up. And it's a beautiful, beautiful moment. So I think that that's one reason that you absolutely need wedding films. Another reason is that you can't be everywhere at your own wedding. And there's a lot going on. Now, there's sometimes there's the perception that because you have a filmmaker there, that they're going to capture everything. And that's not true either. They're not literally recording. If your wedding is a 10-hour day, they're not recording for 10 hours. But a good wedding filmmaker knows what to capture, and they're going to get those little moments. When you're saying your vows and mom is sitting there and you didn't notice that mom was tearing up and squeezing dad's hand because, her little baby is getting married, a great wedding filmmaker is going to capture that moment.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
You're going to see those things that you may miss.
So let's flip a little bit here and talk about the business side of this. And I'm sure you work with a lot of different businesses, right, in this space. So tell me, what do you see that's working well for them right now?
Well, one thing that I've keep saying, and I don't have the data to back this up, and I'm sure that you do, or you could at least look into it and tell me whether my theory or my hypothesis is right or wrong. But it seems to me that the fastest growing sub-industry of the wedding industry right now is wedding films. It is so hot. Pretty much everybody has a photographer that they have for a while. Pretty much everybody has one wedding dress, one, maybe 2 wedding cakes, depending on what part of the country you're in. But wedding films right now, it's hot. Harper's Bazaar just came out with another article, the top 9 wedding, I don't know why they chose 9, but the top 9 wedding filmmakers in the world. One of them is a client of ours. And it's just everywhere you look. lovestoriestv.com is a big website right now. It's kind of like a YouTuber house just for wedding films. There's just so much going on in the space that wedding filmmaking is really coming into its own and stepping out of the shadows. But there's still so much room for growth. And so, I think that one thing for wedding filmmakers, get involved in the community. We are sponsors of How to Film Weddings. They have a wedding podcast. They interview the best in the industry. They have their Facebook group, over 5,000 members. The 2 co-founders are clients of ours, as well as us being sponsors of them. And what we have found is that our clients who are part of that group or part of a wedding film community and haven't insulated themselves from everything really know what's going on in the industry, what the trends are, and are just having more and more success because there's a lot of collaboration in the industry. Because look, most wedding filmmakers, aside from the higher volume companies, shoot 15 to let's say 30 weddings a year.
Yeah.
You know, how many weddings are there a year in the States?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's
2.2 million. Yeah.
exactly, there's plenty for everybody. So people in this industry were really finding that wedding filmmakers being very collaborative with each other. Um, the Instagram trailer, that's the hottest thing. That's been the hottest thing for about a year right now, and it still is, right? That's where I think a lot of the demographics of the couples getting married have moved off Facebook. The parents are still on Facebook, but the
Yeah.
couples getting married are on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so these 1 minute Instagram trailers, couples love them because it's like your own Hollywood movie trailer. And everybody in your network has time. Everybody in your network has time for 60 seconds. Not everybody has time for 5 minute film or a 15-minute film,
Yeah.
but they all have time for that. And that's where, filmmakers are hashtagging. And we have a client, he's in Houston, he's a wedding filmmaker in Houston, and he hashtagged, a couple of the bigger markets in the country. Next thing he knows, somebody saw his film in New York, and it was an upmarket wedding in Manhattan, and they booked him. They flew him out to New York to shoot the wedding, and somebody else saw the film that was doing a destination wedding in Greece. And so guess what?
Yeah. He's going to Greece.
He's going to Greece.
Yeah. It's awesome because, and it's true because, my niece who's getting married later this year, I actually interviewed her because I wanted to get her perspective on things. And she sourced all her vendors through Instagram. So that's how she basically looked at hashtags and looked at what she was looking for, and that's how she sourced all of her vendors. So we had a pretty good conversation about that, and I thought it was pretty interesting around that. Also, too, on video, I'll say that in general, video is finally taking off, right? Like it's been around, right? Video has always been around for many years now, right? And with the internet, but I think it's finally starting to get into its own and starting to take off. You see a lot more video on Instagram. TikTok is extremely popular right now. And then, there's so many video blogs now on YouTube. I think video is it's coming into its own. So I think you see more of that, and I think that it's a great growth opportunity for the business. I think where we're going to have to figure this part out is the economies of scale, right? Because some photographers included as part of their deal. You've got separate videographers that are doing their own deal. I interviewed a guy who's a videographer the other day, who he's a freelance kind of guy. He does it as a side deal. He has a full-time gig. He's in the film industry, but he does this on the side. And poor guy's spending 40, 50 hours per wedding that he shoots to edit this stuff. But it's just it's more and more of this stuff happening, I think. So,
It totally is. And we definitely are seeing a lot of the inquiries that we get are photographers that are adding film to their packages. And I've talked to a number of them, and the trend that I see amongst them, the common theme is that 3-4 years ago, they get asked for video. Like, hey, do you shoot video? But they'd get asked once or twice a season. And they'd say no, or they say no, but I know somebody who does. And then the next year, they got asked 5 times. And then 2 years ago, they got asked 10 times. Last year, they got asked 15 times. And now they're thinking, well, hold on. It's like these videographers I know, they're charging, let's just say $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a film. And I'm passing that up. Like photography and filmmaking they're different, but they're also pretty similar. So why don't I try to offer that? Because usually still, I think, and I don't know, again, I don't have the data to back this up, but I think that still most couples probably go to the photographer first. Again, that may change over the coming years. But so if you're that photographer and you know that they're going to come to you and you can upsell them with video, you're sitting pretty. And for the photographers out there, that doesn't mean that you have to shoot the video. You could try to find a freelance filmmaker in your area. Or maybe you just find an established wedding filmmaker and see somebody who's starting up looking for more work, and you just sell through you, and you take a percentage, you take a cut or whatever, or you reach an agreement, it's under your brand, but they're shooting. But there's a lot of ways that you can do it where you don't have to be the one shooting, and you can continue to shoot the photography.
Yeah, I just got off the interview right before earlier today, and they're seeing that same trend. Photographers, it's basically a studio. They do photography. They have, they start with photography, but video is like just keeps adding on and adding on, right? So they're, $5K to start for your photography package. You add video on for another 2,500, and now you've got both video and photography for the whole event. So, good stuff. It's happening. totally.
Absolutely.
The problem is, like videographers that work in the space that are just doing video, um, I think they're missing opportunity to maybe partner with photographers, like you just said, right, to find additional work and or be a part of that and put that into their thing. I don't know. Do you see that at all talking to them?
I mean, it depends. A number of our clients offer both. There's a lot of husband and wife teams in the wedding film space.
Yeah.
I tend to say wedding films, wedding video, same thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, just for those out there, some wedding filmmakers are very specific about it. It's like, no, film sounds so much more professional.
Yeah,
but there's a number of husband and wife teams out there, and they tend to be the ones that will offer both. One will do photography, and one will do the filmmaking aspect of it. But yeah, to be honest, if we really want to get into it, I would say they are not as similar as a lot of people think that have not done both of them. I come from a background, when I went to film school, I studied cinematography. I also took a number of photography courses, and they're really different. And a lot of photographers that's what ends up happening is photographers will have a tendency to keep a very static camera when they start with video because they're used to standing still. Mm-hmm. Whereas film, again, has that freedom to move in time and space. So that's one thing that takes a while to get used to. And then when you sit down, it's like, oh my God, it's like, what do I do with this editing? Like, this is a totally different skill set. But then on the flip side, filmmakers have issues too when they try to convert to photography. Yeah. So if you've really trained up in both, you're willing to take the time to learn, absolutely. I mean, yes, you can easily get a 5-figure package, right, by selling both. Next thing you know, you're selling both, you're up to $10,000, in certain markets. But you can really, really just earn a lot more money if you are able to do both. If you are able to upsell a lot of films, you can earn a lot as well. Going back to what you said though about kind of scaling in time, I'd like to touch on that for a second with wedding filmmakers. What we see is that when you start out, you don't have many weddings because you got to make a name for yourself. Yeah. And then as you're learning and you're building a portfolio, you start to get up. A lot of wedding filmmakers will start to get up and they're shooting 30, 40, 50 a year. It's almost every weekend, right? Yeah. And then you're going to burn out at that level, especially if you're a very small team. So what we see is then one of two things is going to happen. You're going to fall back down into that comfort zone and be able to raise your prices. And that 15 to kind of 30 spot is really sweet because more or less, let's say, if you're around 25, it means you're shooting a wedding every other weekend of the year. Yep. When you can get your prices up even further, there are wedding filmmakers out there there are wedding filmmakers that charge 5 figures, over $10,000 for a wedding film. Yeah. Or what ends up happening is you're going to go more of the volume route and you're going to build out a team and you actually have a company and you're going to be shooting 40, 50, 60, 70. Like I said, we have one client up to 175 films, but you just have to ask yourself what you want. Do you want to be running that business or do you want to try to work your way up to a higher price point in the market and shoot fewer?
Well, and the thing is that always working yourself up into the higher price point doesn't always pan out because you have to understand your market as well. So if the market doesn't support that, then you have to do what you talked about earlier with the gentleman that was marketing on, he's putting out his video, puts a couple hashtags on there on Instagram. Now all of a sudden he's shooting in New York or he's shooting in Greece, right? Mm-hmm. The market, you have to expand your horizons about the market.
Exactly.
If you're in the upper end of the market, it is very competitive and that business is not always in the space that you're in. It's outside of that space, other markets, the San Francisco, the New York, the bigger markets that are willing to have the money and then people are willing to spend. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're in El Paso, Texas, and you're expecting to, charge $5,000 for shooting a video, you're going to have a very small amount of people that are willing to pay that. So you have to understand what's happening in your market space and then be able to adapt to that and or move to a market where people are willing to pay it.
Absolutely. I think this was one reason, destination weddings are so much fun for wedding filmmakers. And a lot of couples would rather work with somebody, bring somebody to a destination wedding than find somebody locally at that spot. And so destination weddings have become a big way. It's just great when you can put up a destination wedding, in your portfolio. It's like, hey, I shot in Italy. Doesn't matter where you live. Like, that's impressive for people.
That is impressive.
But it's also interesting because, we have a client in Oklahoma and he's able to take his prices up to $10,000 for wedding films. And he's shooting weddings in Oklahoma at that price point.
That's good.
So it is definitely possible, but yes, most of our clients are doing wedding packages more in the $3,000 range. That
Yeah.
seems, from my knowledge of all of our inquiries and all of our clients, that seems to be more of kind of, the middle of the market nationally. And, if you're charging that, that's still plenty to afford outsourcing of editing. And there's still plenty of clients out there, right? There's more clients at that price point. And so
There's a lot more
you're
clients
able
at
to
that
get,
price point.
yeah, you're able to get a lot of work. And one thing I tell filmmakers is that, what's also becoming popular is a number of filmmakers are moving away from the solid packages of package A, B, or C. Because when you offer like package one, $3,000, package two, $4,000, package three, $5,000, what they've noticed is that you're limiting what they can spend. And when it comes to film, we have all these different films that we can create for you, and they all serve different purposes and fit different needs. And so what a lot of people are doing now is offering one film, kind of like a flagship film. Like you're going to get a 4 to 6 minute highlight, and we start there. We start there at, I don't know, $3,500, and then you present an a la carte menu, and it's like you have an Instagram trailer for another 500 or whatever. I don't know. You have a full ceremony, a full speech video. You have an upgrade to 4K. You have a full documentary edit. And the point is that, in my opinion, I would say to a couple, you absolutely need all those videos, because you have to think of those videos, think of the audience of those films like a funnel. Your Instagram cut that's 1 minute is at the top. It has the biggest audience. Like I said already, everybody has 60 seconds. But as we get into those longer videos, your audience shrinks. Who's going to watch a 5 to 10 minute highlight film? Your close friends and your immediate family, right? Or your cousins, your aunts, uncles, parents, of course. As we get into those full films, full ceremony, full speeches, full edit of your day, who's going to watch those? Well, you and maybe mom or dad. And you probably also will only watch them on special occasions, 10th anniversary, 20th anniversary. However, when you think of the longevity, that when the wedding is over, what do you have? You only have your memories. You have the photos, and you have, right, the film. The flowers have wilted, the food is spoiled, the cake is on the floor or in the bellies, and you've got this, and you're going to show it to your kids. You're going to show it to your grandkids. Parents pass on. You're going to be happy that you have your parents' speeches one day when you're celebrating your 50th anniversary. So to me, you need all of those. And I think the couples do, right? You want 4K, if you can afford it, you want the highest quality. Because imagine you had your video shot in VHS. Try to watch VHS today. It's like, oh man. So if you can get it in 4K, and the reason filmmakers charge more for 4K is because it does require more. It requires much more computing power to edit. It requires more disk space. So that's why they charge more if you want it. But if you can afford that upgrade, the longevity of the lifespan of the video is going to be longer. So from the couple's perspective, I think you should get as many videos as you can. And from the filmmaker's perspective, that allows you to start at a lower price point, but potentially upsell. And even if you're not in the biggest market in the country, you are in more of a smaller market, if you're able to let the couple know the importance of having all of these videos, all of a sudden you can turn what initially was maybe even just $2,500. Now all of a sudden you're selling $4,000.
Sure. Yeah, talking to couples as well and people getting married, I get it from a business perspective, but the thing I constantly hear from them is simplicity and a better understanding of range of price. And in fact, I just got off the line with a bride that's getting married, and her thing was, if I could just have a starting price and then maybe some range of something, that would help me at least understand what I'm dealing with, so that I can make a decision about whether or not this person fits into my place. And I get everything is custom in this business, doesn't matter, right? Even though there's a starting point. Because her complaint is that the person had a range on their thing, but when she asked for a quote, what she got back was 3 times higher than what it was. And she was like, no. Okay, well, I'm not doing business with you, right? But so I don't know. And I know I get it from a business perspective that, hey, you just want to have a conversation with them so you can, try to sell them and try to do that. But I think you waste a lot of time by not being upfront and honest right away. Look, if your starting price is 5K, tell people my starting price is 5K. This is why.
Yeah.
That way, they get it, right? You're going to get rid of a lot of people.
Absolutely. And sometimes when we get inquiries and I'm trying to find out the range of, our potential wedding filmmaker clients, and there's no prices anywhere on the internet, not even like on, on the Knot or something where it's,
Yeah.
the average price range is this for the filmmaker. Even for me, it's like, come on, guys, just put it on there. But I do agree with that. Look, the cornerstone, the foundation of any partnership or collaboration, and it's not transactional. I don't want it, between filmmaker and couple, it's not transactional at all. You have to be transparent. You have to be honest. You have to be transparent. And, I do think that a lot of filmmakers struggle with their business skills, with their marketing skills, with their sales skills, with their people skills.
Yeah.
And it takes them time. There's a lot of great ones out there too, but it takes, I was a filmmaker. I was a film student. I knew nothing about business. I didn't know how to interact with people back in the day.
Yeah.
And it takes time to learn, to be able to sit there and comfortably, talk to a couple about this and be upfront about it so that the conversation is moving forward and you're not feeling like, well, yeah, whoa, you said starting price, whatever, 3, but now you're telling me 9. And
Yeah. It's a challenge.
how did we go from here to here all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's a challenge because you're a creative person, right? This is your skill, this is your craft. I think it's key that people realize what their weaknesses are and go, look, okay, I'm not good at that. Let me get somebody else to help me with that part of it or something, right? Because that way you can focus on the things you're good at, right?
Absolutely.
I've heard
It's the
that.
same thing. That's what I tell people about editing. Like, you don't have to edit. I don't like editing. That's part of the reason I started this company. It's not because I love editing. It was because I was like, if I don't like editing,
Mm-hmm.
right, there's other
How many
people
other
that
people
don't like
don't like
editing.
editing, right?
Exactly. So let's find the people who love editing and give them enough work so that they can do what they love, which is editing. Right. I like running the business. I like managing the business. For me, that's the fun of it. I come from a video production background, but yeah, I got to the point even with video production, actually being out and doing production, I get tired of it after a while.
Yeah, you do, right? I mean, you get tired of your craft, right? Like you have a certain craft, you get tired of that, right? And you should be doing what you love, right?
You
Um,
have to.
yeah, I mean, you have to, right? I totally agree with you. So like if you were going to give some advice to someone working in the business, in the video business, right? What advice would you give them as a business?
And the wedding video
Yeah, the wedding
business.
space. Yeah, sorry. In the wedding space business, if you were gonna, you talk to different businesses all the time. You have businesses
Hmm.
like yourself as a business owner. What advice would you give them?
Learn to let go.
That's hard.
There's something about wedding filmmakers. And I love you guys. I love all you wedding filmmakers. I really do. There's something about it where it's very hard for them to let go. When it comes to corporate, if they do corporate work on the side, or if that's the other part of their business, it's no problem. It's like there's no personal attachment. Wedding filmmakers get really attached to their couples. And this is a very personal story. It's this beautiful film. It's a little documentary. It's a little Hollywood, and they get really attached to it. And it can be hard for them to let go, but you have to learn to let go. You have to delegate. For us, some of the hardest clients that we've come across are those that don't even like work with a second shooter, or they don't even work with an assistant. They try to do it all themselves because they want that control. But when you look at any successful business, it doesn't matter. When you look at it's Vera Wang. Vera Wang is not she's not like physically sitting there sewing her wedding
Right.
dresses, right? She has built a team around her to help her do that. And you have to do the same thing. Film is a collaborative art. It takes all the art forms and puts them together. And you need people with expertise in all of that so that you can focus on what you do best, what you love doing, and then let other people help you. And it's hard to do at first. And it can't, anytime you onboard a new employee, it slows you down at first, but then exponentially, it will
Yeah,
take
that's
you up
great.
and increase.
That's great advice. Michael, anything else you want to talk about, or any other?
No, Shane, I don't think so. I mean, I'm happy to be here, happy to have this conversation with
Yeah,
you.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
thanks
very
so much,
much.
Michael. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
All right. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. Send me a text, 520-399-8580, or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.